The vast darkness stretched infinitely, a velvet canvas studded with distant stars flickering like the cold eyes of forgotten gods. The Veridian cruiser, Severin, drifted silently through the void, its hull scarred from countless skirmishes, the greenish alloy faintly luminescent under the sparse starlight. Inside, the hum of life, support systems, and the occasional beeping of navigational consoles were the only sounds breaking the oppressive silence. Commander Voltal stood rigid against the viewport, his multiple eyes reflecting the bleak expanse beyond. His elongated limbs tensed with silent urgency, muscles rippling beneath iridescent scales. The Severin had been hunting for days, tracing the faint energy signatures of a derelict vessel lost in this forsaken sector. The Veridians were a warrior race, bred for conquest and survival. Yet even they felt an uneasy pulse in the depths of space, an uncanny stillness that whispered of unseen threats. Voltal's mind flickered over the data streaming, across his neural interface, a distress beacon, weak and scrambled, emanating from deep within the asteroid belt known as the Shattered Veil. The signal had no known origin. Its source was unidentified, its message garbled in archaic codes. But something primal stirred within him, a need to investigate, to find the meaning behind the silence. Inside the command chamber, Vashdor, the ship's chief scientist, hovered near the console, her many limbs flitting over holographic displays. Her bioluminescent skin flickered with nervous energy as she analyzed the incoming data. "Commander," she whispered, her voice an eerie chorus of harmonious tones, "the signature is unlike anything we've cataloged. Energy fluctuations inconsistent with known technologies. Could be human." Voltal's 6 eyes narrowed. Humans were an enigma, a chaotic variable in the intricate equations of galactic power. Their reputation preceded them, unpredictable, brutal, yet astonishingly resilient. The last official encounter had ended in bitter stalemate, blood spilled on both sides. But these faint traces hinted at something new, something dangerous. The cruiser shifted course, its engines whispering as it veered toward the coordinates embedded in the beacon. The Shattered Veil's jagged asteroids loomed ahead, vast chunks of rock tumbling endlessly in slow motion bullet. The Severin threaded deftly through the labyrinth, sensors scanning for any sign of life or mechanical presence. Suddenly, an alert burst through the silence, an emergency distress frequency, raw and urgent. The signal crackled with static, but beneath it lay a fragile human voice, trembling yet resolute. Voltal felt an unfamiliar pull, a flicker of empathy masked beneath his tactical calculations. As they approached the source, the outline of a crippled vessel emerged from the shadows, a battered human transport, its hull pierced by deep gouges and plasma burns. The life signs were faint, but detectable. Voltal's heart throbbed with a mixture of caution and strange hope. The air inside the Severin grew thick with anticipation. The metallic scent of machinery mingled with the faint tang of recycled oxygen. The dim emergency lights cast long shadows, turning every corner into a potential threat. Voltal's mind raced through protocols, boarding party, medical aid, containment procedures. But beneath it all simmered a singular question: what desperation had driven these humans to this forsaken edge of space? The boarding hatch hissed open, revealing the wreckage's interior, a chaotic tableau of shattered consoles, flickering lights, and drifting debris. The smell of burnt circuitry and ozone stung the sensitive Veridian nostrils. Voltal led the way, his armored boots echoing softly against the battered hull plates. Then, amidst the wreckage, he saw them. A mother and child, both Veridian, huddled together, eyes glazed with exhaustion and fear. Their breathing was shallow, their forms fragile and vulnerable. The mother's scales were dulled by fever, her limbs trembling weakly. The child clung to her, small and trembling, a flickering glow in its eyes despite the dire circumstances. Voltal's chest tightened. This was no ordinary rescue. These were his people, lost, dying, stranded far from home. The bitter irony seared through him here. In this remote corner of the galaxy, a human had crossed paths with his kin, offering salvation against all odds. A soft sound echoed, a shuffling movement from deeper within the wreckage. From the shadows emerged a human soldier, clad in battle-worn armor, his face smeared with dirt and fatigue, but eyes bright with fierce determination. He carried a small medkit, his movements deliberate and careful, as he approached the Veridian survivors. Voltal observed silently, the strange warmth of gratitude washing over him, even as his mind catalogued every detail. The human's cautious approach, the gentle touch as he administered aid, the unspoken promise of protection in the depths of space. The commander's thoughts churned. Humans, despite their reputation for savagery, held a capacity for mercy that defied expectation. This single act rippled through the fabric of his understanding, challenging everything he had believed about the strange species. As the humans stabilized the mother and child, the Severan's systems hummed with renewed purpose. The void outside remained indifferent, but within the fragile confines of the crippled vessel, a fragile alliance flickered to life. Born from desperation, sustained by hope. Voltal's gaze shifted back to the viewport, the stars beyond no longer cold and distant, but charged with possibility. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger and revelation. Yet in that moment, beneath the endless night, a seed was planted, one that would grow to challenge the very nature of war, mercy, and survival in the cosmos. The Veridian training compound was a sprawl of geometric precision, its towering spires of iridescent alloy catching the pale light of the twin suns. Vast halls stretched beneath transparent domes, their interiors humming softly with the quiet buzz of advanced machinery and the murmur of cadet voices. It was a place designed for discipline and order, a crucible forged to shape the next generation of warriors for the Veridian Dominion. Here, every movement was measured, every breath controlled, every response calculated. Voltal moved through the corridors with the sure, unyielding gait of a seasoned commander. His four eyes scanned the faces of the cadets, young, eager, yet resolutely stoic, marching in formations that would have impressed even the toughest instructors. But beneath the veneer of discipline, an undercurrent of restlessness lingered in the air, subtle but unmistakable. Something was shifting. Voltal's thoughts churned as he reached the observation deck overlooking the training grounds. The massive holographic displays flickered to life, casting bluish light across his scaled skin. The mission report from the recent encounter with the human ship, the one that had saved the Veridian mother and child, was laid bare before him. The data was perplexing, unnerving even humans. Supposedly primitive and frail, displaying resilience that defied all Veridian military doctrine. He recalled the transmission from Sarah Webb, the human commander, crisp and unwavering even in the chaos. "We don't leave anyone behind." That simple phrase echoed in his mind, resonating like a heartbeat against the cold logic of Veridian warfare. The human had risked her ship, her crew, her mission, all to save beings their culture might have considered expendable. Voltal tapped a claw against the console, summoning Vashdor, the lead scientist assigned to study human physiology and combat techniques. Vashdor appeared swiftly, his slender form moving with precise grace. His eyes gleamed with the curiosity of a scholar hungry for answers. The human specimen, the child, specifically. Vashdor began, voice laced with restrained excitement. "Their flesh, their biology. It's unlike anything we've encountered. Fragile on the surface, yes, but beneath that seeming weakness lies a resilience that is paradoxical. Their tissues can absorb impacts, regenerate, and adapt in ways our synthetic armor cannot replicate." Voltal nodded slowly. "We must understand this resilience. Our cadets must learn from it, or we risk being outmatched." The orders were clear. a select group of cadets would be assigned to intensive study, immersing themselves in human warfare principles. Initially, the command anticipated resistance. Veridian pride was formidable. But what followed was far more profound. The first days of the program were met with curiosity. Cadets crowded around holoscreens, displaying footage of human battles raw, chaotic, yet deeply strategic. Unlike the Veridian emphasis on overwhelming force and precision strikes, humans fought with a blend of improvisation and indomitable will. Their tactics were unorthodox and unpredictable, yet devastatingly effective. Voltal observed quietly as cadets dissected each maneuver. Some attempted to mimic human hand-to-hand combat, marveling at the sheer tenacity displayed by soldiers who bore injuries that would incapacitate a Veridian. Others studied the human use of terrain, their cunning employment of cover and ambush, their uncanny ability to endure and persist. Yet, as the weeks passed, an unexpected transformation began to unfold. Half the cadets retained their Veridian discipline, embracing human tactics as a supplement to their training. The other half, those who found the human approach antithetical to their identity, began to falter. Morale dropped. Some withdrew from the program entirely. The rigid structure of Veridian martial tradition clashed violently with the messy, visceral reality of human combat. Voltal found himself pondering the implications. The Veridian way prized control and predictability. Humans embodied chaos and adaptability. How could these conflicting philosophies coexist within a single force? One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of amber and violet, Voltal wandered the training grounds alone. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and the metallic tang of the compound's cooling systems. He paused near the combat arena, where a group of cadets sparred under the watchful eyes of human instructors. The clash of fists and feet echoed sharply, punctuated by grunts and the occasional sharp exhale. The human instructor, Kevin Foster, moved with effortless precision, his every strike a lesson in economy and efficiency. He was lean but powerful, his movements a blend of practiced technique and raw instinct. Voltal's gaze lingered on a young cadet named Trelkar, whose form was tense and awkward as he struggled to replicate a human grappling maneuver. Sweat beaded on Trelkar's brow. His breathing ragged as he grappled with the unfamiliar style. The human combat style was not just about physical technique. It was about mindset. It demanded a willingness to be vulnerable, to absorb pain, to survive through sheer force of will. It was a revelation, a stark contrast to the Veridian ideal of invulnerability through armor and calculated strikes. Later, in a secluded chamber filled with the soft hum of scanners, and data consoles, Vashtor examined the cadets who had volunteered for physiological monitoring. Electrodes traced lines across their skin, mapping muscle response and endurance. The results were startling. Those who embraced human resilience showed increased stamina and mental acuity, their bodies adapting in ways previously thought impossible for their species. Voltal reflected on this new knowledge. The human capacity for resilience was not merely physical, it was woven into their very psyche. They fought not because they were invincible, but because they refused to surrender. This defiance was a weapon, a force that could alter the tide of battle. Yet, this understanding came at a cost. The Veridian cadets who immersed themselves in human warfare began to change, not just in technique, but in outlook. The rigid hierarchy and unquestioning obedience that had defined their upbringing gave way to a more fluid, adaptive mindset. They questioned orders, improvised tactics, and embraced uncertainty. To many traditionalists, this was a form of insubordination. Voltal wrestled with his own reservations. How could he reconcile the necessity of human resilience with the deeply ingrained values of Veridian culture? The solution was neither simple nor comfortable. One night, as the compound lay shrouded in darkness, Voltal stood before a massive viewport, gazing out into the endless expanse of space. The stars glittered cold and distant, yet within their light, he saw a reflection of the human spirit, persistent, unyielding, vibrant amid the void. He thought back to the human commander Sarah Webb, whose courage had altered the course of his people's understanding. Her willingness to risk everything for mercy was a lesson in strength that transcended species. In her, Voltal glimpsed a new path forward. In the days that followed, Voltal convened a council of senior officers and scientists. The discussions were heated, fraught with tension between tradition and innovation. Some decried the human influence as a dangerous contagion, weakening Veridian resolve. Others championed it as the key to survival in an ever more hostile galaxy. Ultimately, Voltal decreed a new doctrine, one that would integrate human resilience into Veridian warfare, not as a replacement, but as a complement. Cadets would be trained not only to wield energy weapons and execute precise maneuvers, but also to endure hardship, to adapt, to fight with heart as well as mind. The announcement rippled through the compound, igniting both hope and fear. For some, it was the dawn of a new era; for others, the beginning of an uncertain future. As the training cycle progressed, the change in the cadets was palpable. Those who embraced the human way developed a fierceness that was both inspiring and unsettling. Their eyes burned with a fire that spoke of survival against impossible odds. Their movements were less predictable, more fluid, like water flowing around obstacles, rather than steel shattering them. Voltal watched these metamorphoses with a mixture of pride and caution. The Veridian Empire had always been built on order and strength, but now it was learning to value unpredictability and resilience. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but also immense potential. One afternoon, during a simulated combat exercise, the cadets faced an unexpected scenario: a sudden ambush in a dense, alien jungle environment. The simulation was designed to test their adaptability under pressure. As the exercise unfolded, the half of the cadets, trained in traditional Veridian tactics, relied on coordinated, overwhelming force. Their responses were swift but rigid, predictable to a fault. The human-trained half, however, displayed remarkable ingenuity. They used the environment, improvised weapons, and coordinated small, flexible units that moved like shadows through the undergrowth. Voltal observed with growing admiration as the human-trained cadets weathered the assault, absorbing blows that would have incapacitated others and retaliating with ferocity. Their bodies bore the marks of the simulation: scratches, bruises, exhaustion. But their spirits remained unbroken. The exercise ended with a decisive victory for the human-trained group. The results were undeniable. That evening, as the compound settled into calm, Voltal retreated to his quarters. The room was sparse, illuminated by the soft glow of the control panel. He sat quietly, contemplating the future. The Veridian way was evolving, shaped irrevocably by the discovery of human resilience. Half the cadets had dropped out, unable to reconcile the conflicting teachings. But the other half, those who had changed majors, who had embraced this new fusion, were the vanguard of a transformation that promised survival against the void. Voltal's thoughts drifted to the human child, the innocent life that had sparked this revelation. In that fragile figure, he saw not weakness, but a profound strength woven from mercy and unyielding will. The galaxy was vast and unforgiving. To endure, the Veridian must learn not just to conquer, but to endure as humans did, to fight with heart, to survive against all odds. This was the first revelation. The resilience of flesh, the indomitable spirit of humanity, had cracked the armor of Veridian certainty. And in that crack, a new dawn began to rise. The observation room aboard the Veridian research vessel was dimly lit, a stark contrast to the blinding glare that streamed through its expansive windows. Outside, the stars wheeled silently in their endless dance, indifferent to the events unfolding on the cold metal stage. Voltal stood motionless, his many limbs folded carefully beneath his armored carapace, his bulbous eyes reflecting the flickering holo displays before him. The faint hum of the ship's engines thrummed through the floor, a constant undercurrent to the turmoil simmering in his mind. The recorded footage from the human military engagement played again, frame by meticulous frame. It was a tactical exercise captured during the Veridian study of human warfare, a critical element of the ongoing research into the species that had saved a dying mother and child deep in the void. That act of mercy had shattered many of Voltal's preconceived notions, but now, watching these humans engage in combat, a second, deeper revelation began to take root, one that challenged not just the Veridian understanding of warfare, but the very nature of tactical adaptability. The scene unfolded against a rugged, desolate terrain scattered with shattered rock formations and sparse, brittle foliage. The human unit moved with fluid precision, not unlike a living organism, constantly shifting shape and role in response to unseen threats. Unlike the Veridian strategies, rigid, hierarchical, and predicated on overwhelming force, the humans demonstrated an almost organic flexibility. Units broke apart, regrouped, and reformed, each soldier assuming roles that were never static, never predictable. Voltal's compound eyes narrowed, tracking the movements of the human squad commander, Sarah Webb, as she led her team through the chaos of simulated ambushes, sniper fire, and sudden enemy onslaughts. She was no larger than a Veridian recruit, yet her presence was commanding, her decisions instinctive yet informed by a layered understanding of terrain, enemy psychology, and the ebb and flow of battle. More striking was how the squad responded to her cues. No telepathic command was necessary, only a glance, a gesture, an almost imperceptible shift in posture. This was not the drill and discipline the Veridians had expected. This was something else, adaptability born from trust, from shared experience, and from individual initiative. The cadets had read about the rigid, regimented nature of Veridian warfare, where deviation from protocol was tantamount to betrayal, where every movement was a calculated step in a preordained pattern. Yet here, these humans appeared to thrive precisely because they could abandon protocol at a moment's notice, improvising with skill and intuition. Voltal's thoughts turned inward, recalling the stories from his own cadet days. The endless drills, the strict adherence to command chains, the suppression of individual will for the sake of coordinated might. There was strength in unity, certainly, but at what cost? The humans, with their chaotic, unpredictable maneuvers, seemed to possess a kind of tactical evolution, a capacity that transcended mere calculations and algorithms. The senses of the room shifted. Vashdor, the Veridian scientist assigned to analyze the video data, was present, his many eyes flicking rapidly between statistical readouts and the visual feed. His antenna twitched nervously. "Commander Voltal," he murmured, "the humans' approach, this fluidity, is it possible that it stems from their neural plasticity, their cognitive flexibility? Our studies do show higher variability in their decision-making processes." Voltal nodded slowly, his mandibles clicking softly. "Yes, Vashdor. But it is more than biology. It is culture, experience, something that cannot be replicated by our command structures or AI simulation. It is a living, breathing adaptability." The room's atmosphere thickened as the footage continued, the human squad maneuvering through simulated enemy fire and terrain obstacles with an uncanny blend of caution and aggression. One moment, the squad suppressed an enemy outpost with coordinated sniper fire. The next, they dispersed to flank a hostile armored vehicle, imperceptibly shifting roles from sharpshooters to demolition experts and medic support without missing a beat. It was a ballad of violence, choreographed by instinct and honed by countless battles, both real and practiced. Voltal's mind raced, piecing together insights that felt both exhilarating and unsettling. The Veridian doctrine, based on raw power and overwhelming force, was efficient, but it was also predictable. The humans exploited unpredictability as a weapon, making their tactics a living, evolving entity that was difficult to counter. This was the second revelation, a fundamental shift in understanding human warfare, flexibility as a strategic imperative rather than an inconvenient anomaly. As the simulation unfolded, Voltal's senses sharpened to the ambient details encoded in the recording. The sharp crackle of gunfire, the low thrum of human exosuits adjusting to terrain, the muffled commands exchanged in rapid, clip bursts. The humans' voices were a mixture of urgency and calm determination, a strange harmony that spoke of trust forged through shared peril. It was a stark contrast to the reverberating, mechanical orders typical of Veridian battalions. Voltal's attention zeroed in on one moment, a sudden ambush where the squad's forward element was nearly pinned down by hostile fire emerging from a narrow canyon. The response was instantaneous and multifaceted. Sarah Webb, with a deft hand, signaled a withdrawal while two soldiers laid down suppressive fire. Another flanked through a narrow ravine, using the rocks as cover, silently eliminating a hidden enemy sniper. Simultaneously, a medic darted forward, stabilizing a wounded comrade who had taken a glancing shot. It was chaos tempered by coherent strategy, a simultaneous dance of offense and defense, improvisation and discipline. The coordination was not imposed by rigid hierarchy, but emerged from a shared understanding of purpose and mutual reliance. Voltal felt a stir of envy mixed with cautious admiration. The sheer complexity of the human tactical adaptability defied his previous notions of what constituted military efficiency. The sensory details of that moment lingered. The metallic scent of spent cartridges, the acrid tang of smoke mingled with the earthiness of disturbed soil, the rhythmic thuds of boots striking rocky ground. Voltal could almost feel the tension radiating from the humans' bodies, the adrenaline surging as they responded to danger with a fluid grace that was at once primal and sophisticated. He recalled the reports from the cadets who had studied human warfare. Nearly half of them had dropped out, overwhelmed by the demands of this radically different combat philosophy. The other half had shifted majors, embracing the human model and challenging the rigid doctrines of the Veridian Military Academy. Their transformation was not just academic, it was personal, reshaping their understanding of themselves and their place in a universe where adaptability trumped brute strength. The room shifted again as Voltal's gaze turned toward the environmental conditions of the simulation. The terrain was uneven, marked by sudden drops, loose soil, and dense patches of scrub. Unlike the open battlefields preferred by Veridian commanders, this environment favored stealth, rapid maneuvering, and intimate knowledge of cover. The humans seemed to leverage these conditions brilliantly, adapting their formations and tactics with an ease that bespoke extensive training and innate ingenuity. Voltal's internal voice dredged memories from his own campaigns, where inflexible strategies had cost lives and resources. The Veridians had relied on overwhelming firepower and numerical superiority, often to devastating effect. But when faced with agile, cunning opponents who could adapt, those methods faltered. The humans' success was not just technical but philosophical, a willingness to embrace uncertainty, to innovate on the fly, to accept risk as a constant companion. He reflected on the cognitive implications of this. Human soldiers demonstrated situational awareness, layered with individual initiative and collective synchronization. Their neural pathways, conditioned by diverse experiences and cultures, enabled rapid reassessment of evolving threats. This was a form of warfare that valued mental agility as much as physical prowess. Suddenly, Voltal's thoughts returned to the human who had saved the dying Veridian mother and child, Kevin Foster. That single act of mercy was emblematic of a broader human ethos, a complex confluence of compassion and ferocity. This ethos was inseparable from their tactical adaptability. The humans fought not only to destroy but to protect, to preserve what they valued, and to adapt their methods as circumstances dictated. Mercy and ruthlessness were strands of the same braided cord. The simulation reached its climax as Sarah Webb's squad executed a coordinated extraction under heavy enemy fire. The squad leveraged smoke grenades, rapid suppressive bursts, and deft hand signaling to disengage and retreat. The choreography was seamless, almost instinctive, embodying the very essence of tactical flexibility Voltal had struggled to define. As the last frame faded, the room's quiet was profound. Voltal exhaled slowly, mandibles clicking softly, as he processed the weight of the revelation. The Veridian military might be titanic in strength, but it was static, bound by tradition and rigid command. The humans were something different. Dynamic, adaptive, unpredictable. They fought not with brute force alone, but with a fluid intelligence that evolved with each encounter. Voltal's thoughts turned to the implications. Could the Veridian forces embrace this adaptability? Could their cadets, many of whom had faltered or changed courses, become catalysts for a new doctrine? The answers were uncertain, but the path forward was clear. To understand humanity's warfare was not enough. The Veridian military needed to internalize and embody the human principle of tactical adaptability. The sensory impressions of the simulation, the crack of rifle fire, the shifting shadows cast by the setting sun on rocky outcrops, the subtle signals exchanged beneath the chaos, etched themselves onto Voltal's mind like a blueprint for evolution. His resolve hardened. The future of Veridian warfare would be shaped by this second revelation. As the observation room's lights brightened to signal the end of the session, Voltal turned away from the screens. The stars beyond the viewport continued their silent vigil, timeless and eternal. Yet within the darkened ship, a transformation was underway, sparked by the study of human warfare and the indelible mark left by mercy and adaptability. This was no longer just academic, and it was the beginning of a profound change that would ripple through the Veridian ranks, reshaping their understanding of war unity and the unpredictable power of a species that fought with both heart and mind. The dim light of the Veridian warship's command hub flickered intermittently, casting long, ghostly shadows across the console panels. Voltal leaned forward, fingers poised above the holographic interface. Eyes narrowed as the last fragments of the transmission from Sarah Webb's vessel played out in the silence of the room. The static crackle had long since faded, leaving only the haunting echo of humanity's actions resonating in his mind. It was not just what they had done. It was how they had done it. The merciless precision coupled with unexpected tenderness had unsettled him in ways no Veridian battle strategy ever had. The room smelled faintly of recycled air and scorched circuitry, a sharp contrast to the vast void beyond the ship's hull. Outside, distant stars shimmered coldly, indifferent to the small drama unfolding within the confines of this warship. Voltal's thoughts drifted back to that moment, the moment that had shattered his understanding of warfare and compassion. He remembered the cry of the dying child, faint and desperate, barely audible over the roar of the collapsing starship. The child's mother, fragile and broken, cradled her offspring with a fierce protectiveness that transcended species. And then, the sudden eruption of violence. The human, Kevin Foster, diving headlong into the storm of fire and debris, his actions deliberate and swift, yet laced with a profound gentleness. He had risked everything not for glory or tactical advantage, but to save life itself. Voltal closed his eyes, attempting to dissect the paradox. In Veridian culture, mercy was often reserved for strategic gain, a tool wielded with cold calculation. Yet here was a species that extended mercy as a fundamental instinct, intertwined deeply with their capacity for ferocity. to protect life at all costs, yet to annihilate threats with unyielding fury. This was an unfamiliar equation. The hum of the ship's engines grew louder, a deep vibration that seemed to pulse through Voltal's chest. He rose from his seat, pacing the narrow confines of the command hub, as the memory replayed in his mind like a relentless tide. The holographic star map above the console pulsed softly, pinpointing the coordinates of the human fleet's recent engagement. They had not only saved the mother and child, but had dismantled the attacking forces with a precision that verged on artistry. Voltal's gaze shifted to the side panel, where data streams flickered, battle analysis, sensor logs, communication intercepts. Every piece painted a picture of humanity's unique approach to warfare. Brutal yet restrained, aggressive yet compassionate. The contradictions twisted inside him, unsettling and compelling in equal measure. He thought of Vashdor, the scientist who had been the first to propose studying humans, not as enemies, but as enigmas. Vashdor's theory had been radical, that humans possessed a duality of nature, a capacity for empathy that fueled their combat effectiveness. This revelation had been dismissed by many in the Veridian ranks as sentimental folly. But now, as Voltal scrutinized the evidence, he found it increasingly difficult to deny. The air in the command hub felt thick, charged with the weight of unspoken truths. Voltal's mind raced through endless simulations. What if this human capacity for mercy was a tactical advantage? What if it was the very thing that allowed them to endure, to fight with such relentless resolve? The implications were profound. Outside the viewport, the dark expanse of space stretched infinitely, a canvas of stars and void. A faint blue-green glow emanated from the Veridian homeworld in the distance, a reminder of the stakes at hand. This was not just a battle for survival, it was a confrontation of ideologies, of values encoded deep within the marrow of two species. Voltal's thoughts wandered to the cadets, who had studied human warfare. Half of them had dropped out, unable to reconcile the emotional maelstrom that accompanied the human methods. The other half had changed majors, their perspectives irrevocably altered by the exposure. It was no longer enough to master tactics and weaponry. Understanding the human psyche had become essential. The command hub's door slid open with a hiss, momentarily breaking Voltal's reverie. A junior officer entered, her expression somber as she approached the console. She spoke briefly, reporting new intelligence of human fleet movements. Voltal nodded, absorbing the data, but his mind remained tethered to the human act of mercy. He recalled the moment Sarah Webb had issued the order to withdraw, shielding the mother and child from further harm. The precision of that command had been flawless, executed with an efficiency born of rigorous discipline. Yet beneath that discipline lay a profound respect for life, a concept alien to many Veridians. Voltal's hands clenched into fists as he struggled to articulate the emotion swelling within him. It was not fear, nor admiration alone. It was a dawning realization that the Veridian approach to warfare, rooted in dominance and control, might be fundamentally incomplete. The humans had introduced a variable he had not anticipated, a moral calculus intertwined with combat instinct. The scent of burnt ozone lingered faintly in the air, mingling with the metallic tang of the ship's interior. It was a sensory reminder of recent battles, the price paid for survival etched into every corner of the vessel. Yet amidst this, the memory of Kevin Foster's selfless dive into danger shone like a beacon, a testament to a different kind of strength. Voltal's eyes drifted to a datapad resting on the console, its screen flickering with the coded testimonies of human soldiers. They spoke not of glory or conquest, but of duty, sacrifice, and an unyielding commitment to protect their own. This ethos, so foreign yet compelling, resonated deeply with him. He understood now why so many cadets had faltered. To study human warfare was to confront not only tactics, but the very essence of what it meant to fight and to care. The duality was a crucible, forging warriors who could kill without hesitation, yet shield with fierce compassion. Voltal turned away from the console, his mind awash with conflicting emotions. The Veridian way had always been clear: cut victory through strength, dominance, and unbending resolve. But the humans had introduced a new paradigm, a fusion of mercy and ferocity that challenged the very foundations of Veridian martial philosophy. He stepped toward the viewport, gazing out into the endless dark, where the human fleet now retreated, carrying with them the fragile lives they had saved. The stars seemed to pulse with a silent rhythm, a reminder that in this vast universe, survival was not merely a matter of force but of understanding. Voltal's breathing deepened as he contemplated the path ahead. The war was far from over, but the lessons gleaned from this encounter would shape the future of Veridian strategy. Mercy could no longer be dismissed as weakness. It was a weapon, a shield, and a force that could redefine the calculus of battle. He thought of the mother and child, their survival a small yet profound victory amid the chaos. Their lives embodied the paradox that now consumed his thoughts, a paradox where mercy and fierce protection were not opposing forces, but intertwined strands of a deeper truth. As the ship hummed steadily, Voltal resolved to usher in a new era of Veridian warfare, one that embraced the complexity revealed by these humans. It was a revelation born from a single act of kindness in the depths of space, a spark that would ignite change across the stars. He returned to the console, fingers tracing new commands as he initiated a comprehensive review of the human encounter. Every detail would be studied, every nuance examined. The duality of humanity, their capacity to show mercy and yet fight with ruthless determination, had become the key to survival in an uncertain universe. The command hub grew quieter as the rest of the crew focused on their tasks, unaware of the profound shift unfolding in their commander's mind. Voltal sat back down, eyes fixed on the holographic display that now shimmered with new coordinates and tactical projections. The stars outside continued their silent vigil, indifferent yet eternal. But within this ship, within this moment, a new understanding had been forged, a third revelation that would change the course of the conflict and perhaps the fate of two worlds intertwined by a single, extraordinary act. Voltal's heartbeat steadied, a strange calm settling over him. The war had revealed many truths, but none as profound as this, that mercy was not weakness, nor protection mere instinct. Together, they formed the essence of a warrior's soul, one that could endure, adapt, and prevail against the darkest of foes. In that quiet command hub, beneath the flickering lights and the endless stars, Voltal embraced the paradox. He embraced humanity, not as an enemy to be conquered, but as a mirror reflecting the potential for greatness within all who dared to fight not only with strength, but with heart. The void outside the battered hull of the Veridian frigate was a deep and endless black, pierced only by the cold glitter of distant stars. Inside, the ship shuddered with the violent tremors of incoming fire. The air was thick with the sharp, metallic scent of ruptured conduits and the faint, acrid smell of burning circuits. The low hum of life support systems fought a losing battle against the chaos, unfolding within these steel walls. Voltal crouched behind the fractured remains of a bulkhead, his segmented armor marred by scorch marks and dented by shrapnel. His many eyes flicked rapidly, tracking the erratic flashes of light that danced through the corridors ahead. The Veridians were trained, rigid, disciplined, but this was not a battle they had anticipated, nor one they could easily win. Their weapons were advanced, but the enemy was unlike any they had faced. Sarah Webb's human warriors. Legends told of their ferocity, but no legend had prepared Voltal for the terrifying reality. The corridor before him was a shattered ruin. Panels torn from walls lay twisted across the floor, Wires hung like the entrails of some great beast, sparking and hissing. The air vibrated with the pulse of distant explosions. Somewhere beyond, the wailing groan of damaged engines echoed, a mournful dirge to the dying ship. Voltal's mandibles clicked in frustration. The humans were relentless. They moved with an unyielding purpose, their discipline tempered by something primal, a savage instinct that defied all his expectations. The Veridian tactics, based on order and precision, seemed brittle in the face of this unpredictable onslaught. A sudden roar shattered the icy tension. Not a cry of despair, but a guttural battle shout that resonated through the metal bones of the ship. Sarah Webb's voice, commanding and fierce, carried through the comms with the force of a storm. It was the sound of a predator unmasked. Voltal's mind raced, thoughts spinning in a maelstrom of fear and awe. He remembered the child, the tiny Veridian infant cradled in the trembling arms of the dying mother. The same child he had sworn to protect. Their fate now entwined with Sarah Webb's arrival. This battle was more than a skirmish. It was a test of wills, a collision of wills that would decide the future of many. His grip tightened on his plasma rifle. The weapon hummed faintly, charged and ready. He moved, silent as a shadow, through the wreckage toward the bridge. The command center was critical. If the humans took it, the battle was lost. Suddenly, the corridor ahead exploded in a tempest of light and noise. A figure appeared, tall, clad in battle, worn armor that gleamed with a subtle blue sheen. The human soldier moved with deadly grace, each step purposeful, each breath controlled. Voltal fired instinctively, plasma bolts lancing through the air in a deadly arc. Kevin dove behind a shattered console, the shots scorching the steel mere centimeters from his face. The human's eyes burned with a fierce light, unwavering and sharp. Without hesitation, Kevin rose, sprinted through the wreckage, closing the distance with terrifying speed. His assault rifle barked out a series of sharp bursts, and Voltal was forced to dive aside, feeling the singe of plasma as it passed just overhead. The air was thick with the sound of their weapons, a chaotic symphony of destruction. But then, something changed. Kevin's movement slowed, his attention shifting beyond Voltal's immediate presence. The human's gaze locked onto a distant shadow, a figure emerging from the deeper gloom of the engine room. It was Sarah Webb, her presence commanding, almost mythic. A new wave of panic surged through Voltal. He realized, with chilling clarity, that these two humans operated in perfect synchrony. Not just comrades, but extensions of a singular purpose. Sarah Webb was no ordinary commander. She was a force of nature. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently, plunging the corridor into strobing darkness. The ship's failing systems groaned as the strain of battle pushed them beyond their limits. The smell of ozone filled the air, sharp and biting. In the flickering light, Voltal saw movement. A blur of human form, faster and more precise than any Veridian warrior he had ever encountered. Sarah stepped forward, and the world seemed to still around her. Her armor was scratched and scorched, but her posture was unyielding, her eyes blazing with a fierce determination. The silence shattered with the roar of her weapon, an enormous pulse cannon, its barrel glowing with raw energy. She fired, and the blast tore through the corridor with devastating force. The shockwave threw Voltal back, slamming him against the jagged remains of a bulkhead. Pain exploded across his side where a sharp shard had embedded itself deep in his carapace. Yet even as the pain flared, Voltal's mind sharpened. This was no ordinary battle. This was a reckoning. He forced himself to his feet, blood and hydraulic fluid mingling in a grim testament to the struggle. The child's life weighed on his conscience like gravity itself. To survive, to protect that fragile hope, he had to defy every instinct and every protocol. Sarah advanced, unyielding, her pulse cannon humming with lethal promise. Kevin covered her flank, their movements a deadly dance. The Veridian commander knew he could not hold the line. If he wanted to save his people, especially the child, he had to change the game. With a roar that was both a challenge and a plea, Voltal activated the ship's emergency defense systems. Panels along the corridor snapped open, revealing clusters of automated turrets, their barrels swiveling and locking onto the human intruders, the air filled with the mechanical whine of targeting systems engaging. Sarah's eyes narrowed, calculating. She barked orders into her comms, her voice a razor cutting through the chaos. Kevin adjusted his position, the two humans exploiting every inch of cover as the turrets unleashed a hailstorm of energy bolts. But the humans were quick, their reflexes honed by countless battles. Kevin hurled a grenade that detonated with a thunderous boom, sending a cascade of sparks and debris into the air. The turrets momentarily faltered, giving Sarah the opening she needed. She sprinted forward, pulse cannon blazing, carving a path through the wreckage. Voltal charged after her, plasma rifle raised, desperation fueling his movements. Their weapons clashed in a brilliant display of light and fury, each strike echoing the raw intensity of their wills. Sarah's relentless assault pushed Voltal back, but he refused to yield. His resolve was steel forged in the fires of duty and the fragile hope that still flickered within him. Amid the chaos, a sudden explosion rocked the ship, the hull groaning ominously. The child's cry, fragile, insistent, pierced the din. Voltal's eyes locked onto the source, a shattered chamber where the infant lay, swaddled in protective energy fields. A surge of primal urgency overtook him. Ignoring the searing pain in his side, he broke through the fray and reached the chamber, securing the child in his arms. The infant's wide, uncomprehending eyes met his, and for a moment, the war faded into the background. But safety was a fleeting illusion. Sarah was already upon him, the pulse cannon raised and ready. Her eyes held no hatred, only a fierce, implacable resolve. This was the climax, the moment when mercy and wrath collided. Voltal raised his plasma rifle, but before he could fire, Sarah's voice cut through the tension, low and commanding a single word, the human equivalent of a cease-fire. It struck him with the force of a tidal wave. This was no mindless enemy. This was a guardian, strong, unyielding, yet merciful. The pulse cannon's glow dimmed. Sarah's stance softened just enough to betray her fierce humanity. Kevin approached cautiously, weapon lowered but ready. Voltal's many eyes searched her face, searching for deception, for a trap. But all he found was a complex tapestry of emotions, determination, compassion, and an iron will to protect. In that suspended moment, the truth crystallized. The humans fought not to dominate, but to defend. Their wrath was a shield, their ferocity a promise to those they deemed innocent. The ship trembled again, systems failing, and the hourglass of their fate poured its last grains. Voltal made a choice, one that would echo far beyond this battle. Lowering his plasma rifle, he extended a limb, offering peace in a gesture, both alien and sincere. Sarah nodded, her voice steady as she spoke into the comms. A call for ceasefire and evacuation. The battle's climax rippled outward, tension giving way to cautious truce. The Veridian warriors who remained lowered their weapons, their eyes wide with disbelief and reluctant hope. Voltal cradled the child close, feeling the fragile pulse of life against his armored chest. The war was not over, but in this moment, amidst the ruins and the echoes of destruction, a new chapter began. The Guardian's wrath had been fierce, but beneath it lay an unshakable foundation. The capacity for mercy that made humanity both terrifying and profoundly inspiring. As the damaged ship drifted through the silent void, a fragile alliance was forged, one born not of conquest, but of understanding. The human warriors stood ready to protect, and the Veridians, humbled and changed, stood ready to learn. The stars outside continued to burn, indifferent and eternal, but within the fragile hull of the Veridian frigate, hope endured. a testament to the chaos and beauty of life itself. The Veridian outpost hovered silently above the pale blue orb of Earth, distant yet unmistakably familiar. From this vantage, the stars were sharp and cold, pinpricks of ancient light shifting in the vast velvet of space. The hum of the station's life support systems was a constant backdrop, a mechanical heartbeat beneath the quiet tapestry of the cosmos. Voltal stood alone on the observation deck, eyes fixed on the swirling atmosphere below, his thoughts a tumult of shifting emotions. In the weeks that followed the harrowing rescue of the dying human mother and child, in the depths of space, the Veridian Command had convened more than once, each meeting filled with a mix of skepticism, awe, and reluctant admiration. But here, in the solitude of the observation chamber, away from the sterile protocols and rigid doctrines, Voltal allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. The cold gleam of the stars beyond the transparent alloy window seemed almost to pulse with the memory of what had transpired. Not merely a battle fought or a life saved, but the fracturing of long-held beliefs. The human, Sarah Webb, had defied every expectation. She had entered the void not as a conqueror nor a detached observer, but as a guardian. Her ship, modest yet resilient, had navigated the perilous currents of the dying star system with a precision and empathy that the Veridians struggled to comprehend. It wasn't merely the act of saving lives that unsettled the Veridian hierarchy. It was the profound humanity woven into every calculated risk she had taken. Voltal's gaze drifted from Earth's cerulean swirl to the small, enclosed habitat module, where the rescued child now rested, monitored closely by Veridian medics. The child's breaths were steady, a fragile thread of life that tethered the past to an uncertain future. Voltal's own species viewed vulnerability as a liability, yet here, he found himself silently venerating this fragile spark. The child was a testament, not just to survival, but to the capacity for mercy amidst the cold calculus of war. He could still see the moment vividly, Sarah's ship, battered yet unyielding, emerging from the dying star's radiation belt, her voice steady over the comm channels as she ordered her crew to prepare for extraction. The harsh glare of emergency lights, the hiss of decompression seals, the palpable tension as human and Veridian forces coordinated what had seemed impossible. That moment marked a fulcrum, where fear gave way to hope, and ancient enmities began to crumble beneath the weight of shared humanity. Voltal recalled the faces of the younger cadets, those who had once scoffed at the idea of human warfare as unstructured chaos, now studying human tactics with a voracious intensity. The cadet ranks were shifting, half abandoning their old doctrines, and the other half dropping out entirely, unable to reconcile their ideals with the raw, unpredictable spirit they had witnessed. The ripple effect was undeniable. The Veridian military was no longer insulated in its rigid hierarchy, but was absorbing new ideas, new philosophies born from this single, transformative encounter. The scent of recycled air mingled with faint traces of metallic tang from the control consoles, grounding him in the sterile reality of the station. Yet beyond this artificial atmosphere, a storm of change was brewing, a revolution not of weapons or strategy, but of perception. Voltal felt it stirring deep within, an ember of curiosity he had long suppressed. He found himself pondering the enigma that was human warfare, so brutal, yes, yet interlaced with compassion and unpredictability. It was a paradox that defied Veridian logic, but resonated deeply within him. As dawn's light crept slowly across Earth's horizon, casting a soft glow on the outpost's angular structures, Voltal began drafting his report. It would be a document unlike any other, not of tactical outcomes or casualty counts, but of understanding and respect. He knew the Veridian Council might resist, clinging to the certainties of tradition, but change was inevitable. The galaxy was vast, and alliances were forged not merely through shared battles, but through shared values. Meanwhile, in the medical bay, Vashtor monitored the child with meticulous care. The Veridian scientist's usual demeanor of clinical detachment was softened by a quiet reverence. The child's recovery was remarkable, a testament to the resilience of life itself. Sensors tracked every heartbeat, every neural pulse, translating signals into streams of data that Vashtor analyzed with a growing sense of wonder. The child's presence was a living bridge between species, a fragile symbol of hope that transcended the divisions of race and creed. Vashtor found himself contemplating the possibility of future cooperation, of knowledge exchanged not in the shadows of conflict, but in the light of shared survival. The sterile, humming environment of the med bay was a stark contrast to the warmth that now filled the scientist's thoughts. A warmth born from the simple act of saving a life. Outside the station, Sarah Webb prepared for the next phase of her mission. She stood alone for a moment on the ship's bridge, the hum of engines a comforting undercurrent to her thoughts. The rescue had changed everything, not only for those she saved, but for the entire galaxy's understanding of humanity's role within it. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders, but beneath it was a fierce determination to honor the trust placed in her. Her mind replayed the moments of chaos and clarity, the tension of the extraction, the fragile hope that had flickered in the child's eyes. She felt the echo of Kevin Foster's steady presence beside her during those critical moments, his unwavering focus a pillar amidst the storm. Together, they had embodied the duality of human nature, capable of ruthless precision and boundless empathy. The station's artificial gravity hummed softly beneath her boots as she considered the path ahead. There were diplomatic channels to navigate, alliances to build, and a future to define. But for now, she allowed herself a brief respite, gazing out at the expanse of stars that had witnessed countless stories of conflict and reconciliation. Back in the observation chamber, Voltal turned from the window and made his way to the communications console. His fingers danced over the interface, sending a message to the Veridian Council. A message not of victory or defeat, but of revelation. The words were measured, yet carried the weight of transformation, a call to embrace the complexity of humanity, to reconsider the prejudices that had long defined their interactions. He paused, eyes lingering on the transmission's confirmation, then stepped back into the shadows. Change was a slow tide, but it had begun. The cadets who had abandoned their studies, the ones who had shifted their focus, it was all part of a greater awakening. The galaxy was no longer a static battlefield, but a dynamic arena where empathy and strategy intertwined. The quiet of the outpost was disrupted by the soft chime of an incoming message. Voltal activated the screen, revealing the familiar visage of Sarah Webb. Her expression was resolute, eyes reflecting the shared trials and hopes that now bound them. Without words, their connection spoke volumes, a silent acknowledgement that a new chapter was unfolding among the stars. As the communication link closed, Voltal allowed himself a faint smile. The future was uncertain, fraught with challenges and unknowns, but also rich with possibility. The memory of that human mother and child, saved against impossible odds, would endure, a beacon guiding the Veridian people toward a horizon where courage and compassion were not contradictions but complements. In the corridors of the station, the cadets moved with renewed purpose, their footsteps echoing the rhythm of change. Some still struggled with doubt, others embraced the new teachings with fervor. But all carried within them the imprint of that pivotal encounter. The realization that warfare was not merely a matter of domination, but a crucible for understanding the depths of strength and vulnerability. The stars beyond continued their silent vigil, indifferent observers to the unfolding drama of sentient life. Yet within this small outpost, nestled above a fragile blue world, a transformation was taking root. It was a transformation born of a single act of kindness that rippled outward, reshaping destinies and forging bonds that transcended species. Voltal returned once more to the observation deck, watching Earth's gentle rotation as dawn blossomed across its surface. He breathed deeply, the recycled air filling his lungs, and felt a quiet resolve settle within him. The galaxy was vast and often unforgiving, but here, in this moment, he glimpsed a future where understanding could outshine conflict. A new chapter was beginning. Among the stars, amidst the infinite darkness, a seed of hope had been planted. And from that seed, a new legacy would grow, one forged not in the fires of war alone, but in the enduring light of mercy and change.